A waitress received a Christmas invitation from a Korean Mafia boss. She didn't expect what happened next. The envelope sits on the polished mahogany of the restaurant station like a time bomb. It's heavy cream-colored cardstock. My name written in sharp, terrifyingly precise calligraphy. Inside is an invitation that feels more like a death sentence. Join me for Christmas dinner at my private estate. It isn't a request. Men like Kang Tae-hyun don't make requests. They issue commands and measure the seconds it takes for you to comply. How did I get here? Just a week ago, I was Naomi Carter, an expat waitress trying to stay invisible, saving everyone to pay off my mounting student loans. Then I stepped into the wrong VIP suite at the wrong time. I saw a transaction that wasn't on the menu, and the look Tae-hyun gave me told me my invisibility had just expired. Now I'm trapped between a ruthless criminal empire and the dark snowy mountains of Gangwon. And the devil himself wants me at his table for Christmas. If you've ever wondered what happens when the line between paralyzing fear and forbidden attraction blurs until it disappears, stay with me and watch till the end how I got through this invitation. Don't forget like, comment, and subscribe to Noir Crown Stories. This is my story. And this is the night I fell into the abyss. I never wanted to catch the eye of Seoul's most dangerous man, but now my entire future hangs by a thread dangling from his manicured fingers. The invitation burns in my hand. Any sane person would be at the airport by now, but there is no hiding from the Kang family. Their reach is longer than any flight I could take. So I pull my hair into a neat professional bun, don my best waistcoat, and prepare to play the most dangerous game of my life. The black Maybach glides through the outskirts of Seoul, the neon-drenched arteries of the city slowly giving way to the skeletal, snow-dusted trees of the mountains. Inside, the silence is absolute, buffered by layers of German engineering and a driver who hasn't shifted his gaze from the road since we departed. I sit in the back seat, my hands folded tightly over my lap, the fabric of my service waistcoat feeling like a corset I can't quite breathe in. Through the heavily tinted windows, the world is a blur of charcoal and silver. I try to track our route, searching for a landmark or a signpost, but the winding roads offer no clues. There is no GPS signal here, no digital tether to the life I spent 3 years building in the city. Just darkness and the growing heavy certainty that I am being erased from the map. We climb higher, the air outside visibly thickening with frost. My mind keeps looping back to the restaurant, to the cold, sharp click of the VIP door and the way Kang Tae-hyun looked at me as I held that tray. It was the look of a man who had found a missing piece of a puzzle, and I was that piece. Now I am being delivered to his doorstep. The car slows as we reach a massive perimeter wall that slices through the forest like a scar. High tensile gates groan open, and for a moment, the headlights illuminate a row of men standing at attention, not in the festive uniforms of holiday staff, but in the sharp functional black of private security. As we pull into the driveway, the estate looms out of the mist. It is a masterpiece of glass, steel, and stone, glowing with a soft amber light that should be welcoming but feels clinical. It is beautiful, breathtaking even. But as the driver pulls to a stop and the door is opened for me by a silent guard, the cold air hits my face like a warning. I step out onto the heated stone path, my sensible shoes clicking hollowly against the ground. The compound is vast, and as I am led through the grand entrance, the smell of expensive wood smoke and pine fills my senses. But there are no colorful lights, no tinsel, no warmth of a holiday homecoming. Every corner is watched by a camera. Every shadow holds a sentinel. I am ushered into a guest suite that is larger than my entire apartment in Mapo. The bed is draped in heavy silk, and a fireplace crackles with a low, controlled flame. It is a prison, I realize, feeling the plush carpet beneath my feet. A prison with silk sheets and floor-to-ceiling windows that offer a view of a cliff I can never descend. I stand in the center of the room, still clutching my small bag, waiting for the door to open, waiting for the man with the predatory smile to tell me why I've been brought to this beautiful, lonely fortress. My pulse is a frantic drum against my ribs, and despite the warmth of the fire, a shiver races down my spine that has nothing to do with the winter cold. The stillness of the estate is not the peaceful hush of a winter evening. It is the heavy, suffocating silence of a museum where the exhibits are alive and watching. As I am let deeper into the heart of the house, My footsteps are swallowed by Persian rugs so thick they feel like sinking into sand. The air is filtered and cool, devoid of the scents that usually define December. There is no ginger, no cinnamon, no cedar. Instead, there is only the faint sterile smell of floor wax and expensive marble. I look for the signs of the season, the traditional markers of a home during the holidays, but find nothing. There are no colorful lights strung along the banisters, no stockings hanging from the massive stone hearths, no cluttered joy of a family preparing for a feast. The grand foyer, which could easily accommodate a 20-foot spruce, stands empty and cavernous. In the corners of the rooms, shadows stretch long and thin, cast by minimalist sculptures that look more like weapons than art. It is a silent house in the most literal sense. The staff move like ghosts, their presence signaled only by the soft rustle of silk or the click of a distant door. They don't speak, they don't smile, and they certainly don't offer a Merry Christmas. Their eyes, when they catch mine, are as unreadable as the dark windows overlooking the frozen valley. This isn't a home celebrating a birth. It is a fortress guarding a secret. The absence of joy is more unsettling than the presence of the guards. In my small, cramped apartment in Seoul, I had taped a single cheap tinsel garland to my mirror, just to remind myself that I was still connected to the world. Here, in the lap of unimaginable wealth, the holiday has been stripped away, leaving only the raw architecture of power. It makes me realize that for Kang Tae-hyun, Christmas isn't a time of spirit, it's a strategic theater. As I pass a long gallery of ancestral portraits, I feel the weight of 100 years of violence and discipline pressing down on me. There is no room for festive weakness in a lineage like this. Every cold hallway and echoing corridor reinforces the same message. I am an outsider who has been pulled into a void. My chest tightens as the silence begins to ring in my ears, a high-pitched frequency of dread. I find myself wishing for a single sound. A laugh, a song, even a scream. Anything to break the unnatural perfection of this tomb. But the house remains mute, waiting for the master of the estate to decide when the silence should end and the real game should begin. I am no longer just a waitress or a guest. I am a heartbeat in a house that has forgotten how to breathe. The door clicks shut with a finality that echoes through the vast suite, leaving me alone with nothing but the crackle of the fireplace and the weight of my own thoughts. 1 hour. That was the command delivered by the silent guard who showed me in. 1 hour to prepare myself for a dinner that feels less like a social engagement and more like a sacrificial rite. I move to the center of the room, feeling like a speck of dust in a cathedral of wealth. On the bed, a gown has been laid out, a deep emerald silk that seems to shimmer with a life of its own. Beside it, a set of diamond earrings catches the low light, cold and sharp. These aren't gifts. They are the costume for a part one never auditioned for. Taehyun isn't inviting me to join his world. He is dressing me in its colors so I can be paraded before his court. I walk to the floor-to-ceiling windows, hoping the view of the mountains will offer some sense of scale or escape. Instead, I see only the jagged, obsidian teeth of the cliffs and the swirling white vortex of a gathering storm. The isolation is total. My phone, my only link to the messy, vibrant life I left behind in the city, sits dead in my bag. Here in this gilded cell, time doesn't move in minutes. It moves in heartbeats. I catch my reflection in the dark glass. I still look like the waitress from the restaurant. Neat bun, white shirt, black tie, but my eyes are wide, glassy with a fear I can no longer suppress. I think of the transaction I witnessed, the flash of a weapon, the calm way Taehyun had sipped his tea while men trembled around him. I know too much, and in his world, knowledge is a debt that is usually paid in blood. I sit on the edge of the silk-draped bed, careful not to wrinkle the emerald fabric. The silence of the house begins to vibrate again, a low-frequency hum that feels like it's coming from the walls themselves. Is he watching me? The thought sends a jolt of electricity down my spine. I imagine him in some hidden surveillance room, his sharp features illuminated by the glow of monitors, watching the way my chest heaves, the way I bite my lip until it stings. The dread is a physical thing now, a cold hand tightening around my throat. I try to breathe to find the prudence I've always relied on, but the air in this room feels thin, sucked out by the sheer gravity of his presence. I have 40 minutes left. 40 minutes to transform from a terrified witness into whatever he needs me to be. I look at the emerald dress and realize I have no choice. In this house of shadows, survival means wearing the devil's colors and praying he doesn't decide to tear them off. I stand up, my legs shaking, and reach for the silk. The game is beginning, and the clock is ticking toward 0. The heavy double doors of the suite creak open, and the silent guard gestures for me to follow. I move with a stiff, artificial grace, the emerald silk of the gown whispering against the marble floors as we navigate the labyrinthine corridors. We reach a smaller, more intimate drawing room where the air is thick with the scent of aged cedar and medicinal herbs. In the center of the room, seated in a high-backed chair that resembles a throne, is an ancient woman whose presence seems to pull the very light from the room. She is draped in a traditional hanbok of muted charcoal, her silver hair pulled back with a jade hairpin that looks sharp enough to draw blood. Beside her stands Kang Tae-hyun. He has shed his suit jacket, appearing leaner and more dangerous in his dark waistcoat, his hands clasped behind his back. As I enter, his eyes travel over the emerald dress, a faint proprietary flicker of satisfaction crossing his sharp features, but he says nothing. The old woman watches me with eyes that have clearly seen the rise and fall of empires. There is no warmth in her gaze, only a clinical, terrifyingly deep appraisal. "So," she says, her voice a dry rasp that carries the weight of absolute authority. "This is the one who witnessed the shadow in the restaurant." Taehyun bows his head slightly. "She is the one, Halmione." A cold realization settles in my gut. This wasn't just an invitation to keep a witness quiet. This was an introduction. In the hierarchy of the Kang family, the matriarch is the keeper of the bloodline and the final judge of character. To be brought before her on the most sacred family night of the year is not a threat of execution. It is a ritual of inclusion. The invitation wasn't just about what I saw. It was about who I might become in their design. The old woman beckons me forward with a gnarled hand. As I approach, she reaches out and takes my chin, her skin feeling like cold parchment. She turns my face from side to side, examining me as if I were a thoroughbred horse being auctioned. I can feel Taehyun's gaze on the back of my neck, a physical pressure that makes my skin prickle. "You have a steady pulse for a girl who should be shaking," the matriarch observes, her lips thinning into something that might be a smile or a sneer. "Prudence is a rare trait. My grandson has always had a keen eye for assets." Assets. The word hangs in the air, cold and utilitarian. I am no longer a waitress nor even a person. I am a piece of property being vetted for the family's portfolio. The familial significance of the night suddenly snaps into focus. Taehyun isn't just protecting me. He is auditioning me for a role I don't yet understand. I am the litmus test for his future. As the matriarch finally releases me, the silence of the room feels heavier than ever. The dinner is about to begin, and I realize with a jolt of pure dread that I am not just a guest at the table. I am the main course. The dining hall is an arena of cold stone and flickering candlelight, dominated by a table of dark, polished oak that seems to stretch for miles. I am seated to the right of Kang Tae-hyun, the emerald silk of my dress feeling like a target painted on my skin. Across from me sit the wolves, the 5 pillars of the Kang Empire. There is the accountant, a man with spectacles and thin, bloodless lips, the enforcer whose suit can barely contain the coiled muscle beneath, and the lawyer whose smile never quite reaches his predatory eyes. The meal is served in a series of silent, precision movements by staff who move like clockwork. Course after course of exquisite, delicate food appears before me, but every bite feels like ash in my throat. I eat in mechanical silence, my movements stiff and practiced, aware that every lift of my fork is being scrutinized. I am being weighed, measured, and filed away by 5 pairs of calculating eyes. To them, I am the anomaly, the waitress from a mid-tier restaurant now sitting at the high table of the underworld. The conversation around the table is a low hum of business and veiled threats, conducted in a dialect of power I am only beginning to translate. They speak of logistics, shortages, and cleanup, their voices as detached as if they were discussing the weather. Occasionally, one of them will direct a question toward me, a verbal probe designed to find a crack in my composure. "And how do you find the wine, Miss Carter?" the lawyer asks, his voice smooth as oil. I imagine it's a significant step up from what you usually serve. I feel Taehyun's presence beside me, a dark protective shadow. He doesn't intervene. He simply watches, curious to see how I will handle the snap of the trap. The wine is excellent, I responded, my voice steady despite the frantic drumming of my heart. But in my experience, the quality of the vintage matters less than the company one keeps while drinking it. A sharp, barking laugh erupts from the enforcer, and the accountant's eyes narrow behind his frames. I have passed the first test, but the tension in the room only thickens. Taehyun reaches out, his fingers trailing briefly, almost accidentally, against the silk on my shoulder. The contact sends a jolt of electricity through me that is terrifyingly distinct from the fear. The dinner continues, a grueling marathon of social navigation. I am a foreign object in their ecosystem. A witness who should have been silenced but was instead elevated. I can feel the resentment simmering beneath their polite veneers. To the wolves, I am a liability that their master has inexplicably decided to keep. As the final course is cleared and the heavy scent of espresso and expensive tobacco fills the air, I realize the true purpose of this meal. This wasn't a dinner to welcome me. It was a demonstration of Taehyun's absolute authority. He is showing them that he can bring a lamb into the den of wolves, and they will not dare to bite. But as I catch the glint of the accountant's spectacles, I know that once the master turns his back, the wolves will look for any excuse to hunt. The wolves have retreated to the cigar lounge, leaving the dining hall in a state of haunting post-feast stillness. The only sound is the rhythmic ticking of a grandfather clock and the soft hiss of the dying fire. I stand by the window, my back to the room, watching the snow bury the world outside. The emerald silk of my gown feels heavier now, a skin I am desperate to shed. You handled them well, a voice says, slicing through the silence like a blade. I turn to find Kang Taehyun standing at the head of the table. He has unbuttoned the top of his shirt, the sharp lines of his throat visible in the amber light. He holds a glass of amber liquid, but he isn't drinking. He is just watching me with that same predatory composure that makes my pulse stutter. I did what I had to do to survive the dinner, I reply, my voice barely above a whisper. Now tell me why I'm really here, Taehyun. It wasn't just for the wine. He sets the glass down on the oak table and begins to walk toward me. His steps are silent, measured, closing the distance until the air between us feels charged with a static current. He stops just inches away, so close I can feel the radiating heat of his body. You're a waitress, Naomi. A very observant one, he says, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous velvet. But you aren't just serving drinks. You've been watching the books, the manifests. You know exactly what was in that VIP suite last Tuesday, don't you? The truth sits in the back of my throat, sharp and bitter. I think of the documents I glanced at, the weapon shipments, the laundering routes, the names of men who hold the city's heart in their hands. I thought I was invisible, a ghost in a uniform, but Taehyun doesn't miss anything. I translated the fear in their eyes, I say, meeting his gaze. I saw the numbers. I know your export business has nothing to do with electronics. He reaches out, his thumb tracing the line of my jaw with a touch that is terrifyingly light. The blurring line between fear and desire snaps into focus. I should recoil, I should scream, but I am frozen by the gravity of him. Most people who see what you saw end up as a footnote in a police report, he murmurs, his eyes dropping to my lips. But you didn't run. You didn't go to the authorities. You stayed. You observed. You were prudent. I was trapped, I retort, though the heat flooding my cheeks betrays me. Trapped or intrigued? He leans in, his breath warm against my ear. You knew the documents were a death sentence, yet you still accepted the invitation. You wanted to see the devil in his own house. He pulls back just enough to look me in the eyes, his expression unreadable. I didn't bring you here to kill you, Naomi. I brought you here because in a house full of wolves, I need someone who knows how to stay invisible while seeing everything. You've translated my business. Now I want you to translate my enemies. The confession hangs between us, a new kind of cage. I am no longer just a witness. I am being recruited into the dark. My future hangs by a thread, and as his fingers linger on my skin, I realize with a sickening jolt that I'm not sure if I want to break free or pull the thread tighter. The heavy oak door to my suite had been locked from the outside, but the wolves had underestimated a woman who had spent years navigating the back corridors and faulty latches of Seoul's service industry. Using a thin metal file from my cosmetic bag, I feel the cylinder click. A small rebellious victory that tastes like ash in my mouth. Taehyun had told me to stay put, to wait for the storm to pass, but the silence of the house had become a physical weight I could no longer carry. I needed to know what kind of abyss I was truly standing in. The corridors are dim, the amber lights flickering as if the estate itself is losing its breath. I move like a shadow, my bare feet silent on the cold marble, until the sound of raised, jagged voices pulls me toward Taehyun's private study. The door is slightly ajar, a sliver of harsh light cutting across the dark hallway. I press my back against the wall, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against the emerald silk of my bodice. Inside, the air is thick with the smell of spilled whiskey and ozone. The shipment was seized at the Incheon perimeter. A voice snarls, "It's the enforcer," his tone stripped of its earlier dinner table polish. Someone fed the coordinates to the maritime police. Someone in this room. I peer through the gap. The scene is a tableau of raw, unfiltered aggression. The accountant is backed into a corner, his spectacles askew, while the lawyer stands by the desk, his face a mask of pale fury. They are no longer a united front. They are animals in a cage, fingers pointing, accusations flying like shrapnel. "I handled the manifests myself," the accountant stammers, his hands shaking. "The only other person who saw them was the girl." My breath hitches. I am the leak, the convenient scapegoat for an internal war I don't understand. Suddenly, the heavy silence of the hallway is shattered by the sound of a gun being cocked. The enforcer has his weapon drawn, the barrel leveled at the accountant's chest. "She's a waitress, you fool. She doesn't have the reach. But you've been skimming from the Gangnam accounts for months." I stumble back, my heel catching on the rug, the sound of my movement echoing in the tense room. The door swings wide. 5 pairs of lethal eyes turn toward the hallway, pinning me like a moth to a board. I am no longer invisible. I have disobeyed the master, witnessed the betrayal, and stood in the path of a bullet meant for someone else. In the center of the chaos, Taehyun stands perfectly still, his silhouette framed by the window and the raging blizzard outside. He doesn't look surprised to see me. He looks disappointed, as if I've just accelerated a timeline he was trying to control. "I told you to stay in your room, Naomi," he says, his voice a low, terrifying calm that cuts through the enforcer's rage. "Now you've seen the leak. And in this house, once you see the blood, you can never wash it off." The crack of a gunshot echoes through the hallway, the sound of splintering wood sharp as a whip crack. I don't even realize I'm screaming until a hand, cold and steady, clamps over my mouth. The scent of sandalwood and expensive tobacco envelopes me as I am yanked backward into the shadows of the alcove. Silence. Taehyun breathes against my ear. His chest is a wall of solid heat against my back, his heart beating with a terrifying rhythmic calm that mocks my own frantic pulse. In the study, the chaos has shifted from words to steel. The enforcer is a blur of motion, but he isn't the only one with a weapon drawn. The lawyer has vanished behind the heavy oak desk, and the sound of glass shattering indicates the accountant has found his own desperate means of defense. This isn't just a disagreement. It's a purge. Taehyun spins me around, his hands gripping my shoulders with enough force to bruise the emerald silk. His sharp features are illuminated by the flickering emergency lights, making him look like a statue carved from ice and shadow. There is no trace of the faint, knowing smile he wore at dinner. There is only the lethal focus of a man who has spent his entire life anticipating the moment the wolves would finally show their teeth. "Listen to me," he says, his voice a low, vibrating frequency that cuts through the ringing in my ears. "The house is compromised. My men are fighting their own shadows, and right now, you are the most dangerous witness in this compound. They think I'm the leak," I whisper, my voice trembling. "They think I told the police about the shipment." "It doesn't matter what they think," he retorts, his gaze flicking to the hallway where shadows are dancing in the strobe-like flash of the dying lights. They want a scapegoat to cover their own betrayals. You are not safe here. Not with them, and not with the grandmother. He reaches into the waistband of his charcoal trousers and pulls out a sleek black handgun, checked and loaded in one fluid motion. My breath hitches. This is the man I feared, the predator who issues commands and expects compliance. But as he looks back at me, I see a shift in his expression. It isn't just a boss protecting an asset. It's something raw, something possessive that makes the line between fear and desire blur into nothingness. From this moment, your life belongs to me, he declares, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that feels like a physical brand. I will not lose what is mine. I will get you out of this fortress, but you must do exactly as I say. Do you understand? I look at the chaos behind us and the dark looming promise in his eyes. I have no exit strategy, no country to flee to, and no one else in this world who knows I exist. I nod a single sharp movement. Good, he murmurs, his hand sliding down to interlock his fingers with mine, his grip crushing and protective. Stay low. Stay behind me. The war has started, Naomi. But I am the only one who decides how it ends. The heavy, armored SUV tears through the back gates of the estate, bypassing the main driveway where the strobe lights of muzzle flashes still dance against the snow. Taehyun drives with a terrifying cold precision, his hands steady on the wheel as we slide onto a narrow, unmapped mountain trail. The fortress, and the life I knew as a simple waitress, recedes into the white abyss of the blizzard. The silence inside the cabin is thick, broken only by the low growl of the engine and the frantic thrumming of my pulse. I watch his profile in the dim glow of the dashboard. He looks less like a CEO and more like the soldier he was born to be. They'll follow us, I whisper, clutching the seat as we bank a sharp corner. The accountant, the enforcer. They saw me. They think I destroyed their shipment. Taehyun's eyes flick to the rearview mirror, sharp and unyielding. The shipment was never at risk, Naomi. The maritime police coordinates were a decoy I planted weeks ago. There was no leak. Only an opportunity. I freeze, the air in my lungs turning to ice. An opportunity? People are dying back there. You let them believe I was the traitor. I needed to know, he says, his voice detached and clinical, the same tone he used to discuss wine and blood. My father built this organization on loyalty, but I've been surrounded by vipers wearing silk ties. I needed a catalyst. I needed a reason for them to move against me before they were ready. He slows the car as we reach a secluded overlook, the city of Seoul glowing like a distant, unreachable galaxy below us. He turns to me, his predatory composure softening into something more complex, something almost human. You were the litmus test, Naomi. I brought a black woman, an outsider, a witness, into the most sacred inner circle of the Kong family on Christmas. I wanted to see who would view you as a vulnerability. I wanted to see who would try to use you to hurt me. I was bait. I breathed, the realization cutting deeper than any threat. You put a target on my back just to test your men. And you survived, he counters, reaching out to brush a stray lock of hair from my forehead. His touch is no longer just proprietary. It is protective, heavy with a weight that suggests I am now the most valuable thing he owns. Every man who reached for a weapon tonight identified himself as an enemy. Because of you, I know exactly whose heads to take next. I look down at my hands, still trembling against the emerald silk of the gown. I am no longer a waitress, and I am certainly no longer invisible. By surviving his test, I have been forged into a permanent fixture of his world. The war has started, he murmurs, shifting the car back into gear. And now that I know who to trust, I can finally finish it. You aren't just a witness anymore, Naomi. You're the reason I'm going to win. As we descend toward the city, I realize the exit strategy I had been praying for is gone. I haven't just caught the eye of Seoul's most dangerous man. I have become the heartbeat of his empire. The line between fear and desire has finally vanished, leaving only the dark, cold reality of the abyss, and the man who holds me there.